Welcome back to Learn Academic English. I'm Jenna, and on my channel I teach English, grammar, vocabulary, writing, reading, speaking, and pronunciation lessons for English learners who are at the intermediate or advanced levels. Occasionally I get some native speakers of English who stop on my channel too, because I love to talk about writing, and writing is difficult for both people who are learning English and people who speak English as their first language. As you may have noticed, I recently made a few videos about essay writing skills, and I'll link all of those in the description box below. We talked about tips for academic writing, how to do a research question to get started on an essay, how to write a thesis statement, and more. And in today's video, I'm going to continue talking about thesis statements by explaining a few common problems with thesis statements and how to fix them. Before we get into that, I'd like to remind you to please give this video a like if you find it helpful, leave a comment and practice with me below, and subscribe if you want more lessons like this one. And stay tuned, because I will begin offering online lessons to help English learners with speaking and writing in early 2023. So you can sign up on my email list and I will let you know when that starts. Okay, so let's get into those common thesis statement problems. Now remember that the thesis statement should come at the end of your introduction. The thesis statement is usually one sentence. Sometimes it can be two sentences. But remember that the thesis statement is a guide for your reader. What is your essay going to talk about? And if you include supporting points, then they need to be in the same order that they will appear in your essay. And we'll talk about that more in just a moment. And remember that your thesis statement shows your argument. What do you want the reader to learn from your essay? And the reader will always use your thesis statement as a guide. While I read my students' essays, I'm constantly going back to the thesis statement to check, does this paragraph support the thesis statement? Is this idea in the same order that the thesis statement showed me it will be? So remember that it's very important, but it's not so hard to do it well. In today's video, I'm going to show you 4 problems with thesis statements, and then we will look at some examples of correct thesis statements to help you write them well. Okay, the first problem is this kind of announcement thesis statement. I'm going to talk about, or this essay will discuss. So this often happens when students have learned to write this way in high school. I see this a lot with my students who have just graduated from high school and now they're in college and they haven't quite learned how to take their thesis statement up a level. So this thesis statement is not considered appropriate for most college, university level classes. So we will see some examples of this later, but the way that you can avoid that is just to take this whole thing out and just state what your argument is. You don't need to make an announcement to tell people, I will talk about, or this will discuss. Okay, moving on to number 2, lack of parallel forms. This is an especially common problem for people who are learning English because they don't quite have enough control of vocabulary or grammar to create a longer sentence with correct forms. So let's see this example. The causes of depression are family breakdown, lonely, and that people have more stress now. So you can see that there are 3 causes. The first one is family breakdown, and that's a noun or a noun phrase. Then we have lonely. Lonely is an adjective. And finally, we have this noun clause. We know it's a clause because it starts with the word that. We have a subject, and then we have the main verb. So you can see here that the sentence does not have parallel forms. These forms are all different. So we need to correct that. And the way that we would usually do that is to choose one of them and then create the other ones in the same form. So I would probably say, let's go ahead and stick with this noun phrase. Let's change this to a noun. So we need to say loneliness. And then let's think of a way that we can change this to a noun. Perhaps we could say increased stress. So again, we have to change all of these forms to have 3 nouns. And we'll see an example of a correct one in just a minute. All right, number 3, a lack of a clear argument. So remember that the thesis is going to show what do you want your reader to learn. And the idea should not be too obvious, or it should be something that the reader can actually learn something from. But if we see this, depression is an important topic today. Well, what's your argument? What do you want me to learn? I already know it's an important topic. This thesis statement does not include an argument that the student can prove. So we need to think about, what is the essay going to discuss? It's going to discuss depression, but what about depression? What's the controlling idea? Is it that depression has some solutions? Is it the reasons that it is becoming more common? Is it the causes? Where does depression come from? What am I going to talk about depression? Okay, and finally, a thesis statement that's too long. So I didn't have enough space to write it, but an example of this would be something like this. Depression has the following 3 causes: family breakdown, increased loneliness, and more stress in today's modern world. However, there are some solutions, such as therapy, treatment, which can include medications, and meditation. Okay, so you can see here that the essay is going to have 2 parts. The essay is going to talk about the causes of depression, and the essay is going to talk about some solutions. But in the thesis statement, I gave all of those points, and now the thesis has become very long. So we could improve this by cutting out those supporting points. And in that case, the reader still knows that I'm going to talk about causes first, and then I'm going to talk about solutions. Or I could find a much shorter way to list those causes and solutions. But definitely the way that it was before, it was too long, and it's really giving more information than we need. So let's move on and look at how we can correct these common problems. So now that we know what some common problems are with thesis statements, let's look at some examples and how to correct them. The first common problem is making an announcement. For example, I'm going to talk about why permanent housing should be provided to the homeless. Or this essay will discuss the reasons that permanent housing should be provided to the homeless. This kind of language is not considered appropriate for college or university level essays. It's often used by younger students, maybe high school students, but for college and university, or for the IELTS or TOEFL or other formal writing situations, you should avoid these announcements. So the first thing that you want to do is that you just want to take it out and then look and see what you have. So now we have the reasons that permanent housing should be provided to the homeless. This is not a sentence, so we need to change this and make it into a clear sentence, a thesis statement. So let's see an example answer. We could say, permanent housing should be provided to the homeless. This is a general thesis statement. It doesn't tell us the specific reasons that we're going to look at in the essay, and that's okay. We know that the essay is going to show that permanent housing should be provided to the homeless and explain why. We also could add for 3 main reasons or for 4 main reasons, and that would be fine also. Or we can add these subpoints and make it more specific, like in the next one. Permanent housing should be provided to the homeless for the following reasons: to reduce long-term costs, clean up city centers, and encourage rehabilitation and employment. So now we know the 3 reasons. The first reason that we'll talk about is reduce long-term costs. The second reason is to clean up city centers. And the third reason is encourage rehabilitation and employment. Okay, let's go to the next common problem, which is lack of parallel forms. The main causes of depression are family breakdown, lonely, and that people have more stress from today's competitive workplace. Okay, so here we have a noun phrase, adjective, and a clause with a subject and verb. These are not parallel forms. We want to look and say, which type of grammar should we have here? Well, we're talking about causes, so probably we're going to have nouns. So we can say the main causes of depression are family breakdown, and then we need to change these to noun forms. Let's see how to do that. The main causes of depression are family breakdown, increasing loneliness, and stress from today's competitive workplace. So here we have a noun phrase, we have a noun phrase with a gerund, and we have a noun phrase. Here we have a noun with a little bit of information to describe it. So we have 3 noun phrases and the sentence has correct grammar. Let's look at the next one, lack of a clear argument. For example, depression is increasing among adolescents nowadays. So this is not a good thesis statement because it doesn't show any kind of argument or like, what do you want the reader to learn in your essay? Depression is increasing among adolescents or teenagers. Well, this is a fact and it's not really something that we can argue. And this is also not something that we can discuss for an entire essay. It's just a fact that we can learn quickly. Most people already know this. And again, it's not something that we can discuss for a whole essay. So the student needs to change this and make it an argument. What does the student want to prove? What does the student want the reader to believe? Maybe we could talk about causes. Why is depression increasing? Or we could talk about some effects. What's the result of that? Or we could talk about some solutions. Okay, so let's see a couple examples. Because depression is increasing among adolescents, taxpayer money should be used to provide mental health programs for teens. So here we're focusing on a solution. The solution is that taxpayer money should be used for mental health programs. It should be, so I'm going to persuade you. This is an argumentative essay, or we might say a persuasive essay. I'm going to try to make you believe that my opinion or my position is the best one. Okay, you can see that this is much more specific and interesting than this one. Or we could even get more specific with this example. TikTok is leading to depression among adolescents because of screen addiction, objectifying bodies, and decreasing attention span. So what happened here? Well, I still want to think about depression and how it's increasing among teenagers, but I decided to get more specific and think, well, where is this coming from? And then I thought about how the use of TikTok could be contributing to this. And I thought about why. And then I thought about these 3 reasons. So now you can see that this thesis statement is much more interesting and more specific than the original one. Okay, let's look at the last problem. The thesis statement is too long. For example, nowadays, depression has 3 important causes: family breakdown, loneliness caused by the COVID pandemic, and increased stress from the competition in today's modern workplace. However, there are a variety of accessible solutions, such as online therapy, new medications, and meditation. Okay, so let's take a quick look at this. So what is the topic? It's depression. And the essay is going to have 2 parts. The first part is going to talk about causes. How many? 3. What are those causes that we'll talk about? Family breakdown, loneliness, and increased stress. Okay, then the essay is going to have a second part. The second part is going to be about solutions. How many solutions are we going to have? 3. And how do we know that? Because they're right here. Online therapy, new medications, meditation. So this kind of thesis statement is very specific and it helps the reader to understand what the essay is going to be about, but the thesis statement is just so long. And this might be okay if the essay is going to be like 20 or 30 pages, but for most essays, this would just be considered too long and unnecessarily specific. Is it okay to have a thesis that's 2 sentences? Sometimes, especially when the essay is going to have 2 parts. But we can still make this shorter. So let's see an example of how to correct it. Well, first of all, we want to think about what part of the thesis is too long. The part of the thesis that is too long is the part where we list the reasons or the causes. And the same thing in the second sentence where we list these solutions. So we can probably take some of this out. Let's see. Depression has 3 important causes nowadays, but a variety of accessible solutions exist. So we still know what the topic is. It's depression. We still know what the first part's going to be. Causes. How many causes? 3. And we know that the second part is going to be about solutions. This is a more general thesis statement. We don't know what the causes are yet, and we don't know what the solutions are yet, but that's okay because in the essay, we will talk about those. Or if we want to go ahead and give those more information, we could do it like this. Family breakdown, loneliness, and increased stress are 3 important causes of depression, but a variety of accessible solutions exist. Okay, so what did I do? I show what those 3 causes are, but for solutions, I don't give those. And again, that's okay. Could I do them? Could I give them here? Sure, but it's not necessary. And the other thing that I did is that I looked at these causes and I said, if I want to list them in my thesis, that's fine, but I don't need to maybe give so much information. So I could make it shorter just by saying loneliness. And then in my body paragraph, I'll explain where that loneliness comes from. Or increased stress from the competition in today's modern workplace. Can we make that shorter? Yes, we can. I hope that this video helped you to see how to avoid common problems in thesis statements. Please let me know if you have questions in the comments below, and be sure to check the description box where I'm going to leave a list of links to my other videos about essay writing. If you found this video helpful, please don't forget to give it a like and subscribe if you want more lessons like this one, and I hope to see you back here soon. Take care.